Hello and welcome to Chasing Fi. It has been a long time, friends, but I am back. Yay! Over the past several months, I have been working on building my author career. As you know, my husband and I are seeking financial independence, and our goal is to be there within the next 3 years. And one of the things that we need to happen is we need my author business to take off. I would like for it to be a 6-figure business that just churns away in the background. I love to write. I plan on doing it for the rest of my life. So I figure, hey, let's just get that started. And I can turn my passion, my hobby into a very profitable business. So that's what I've been working on. I have published a couple books this year. I can't even remember how many right now, but I will put the links below if you're interested in mystery or you like romance. I am writing in both genres, and right now I have a promotion through Apple Books where the first book in my series is free. So I have extended that to all of the retailers. And if you enjoy mystery, go on and get it. It's totally free right now. There are, at this time, 7 books in the series, 1 prequel, and then 6 books after that. I also will have a couple more mysteries coming out this year. The romance, these are shorter books. They're just really sweet stories. And I just released the 5th one like 2 days ago. So those are currently in Kindle Unlimited with the exception of the 5th book because I give all the books a little time on all of the platforms before I put them into Kindle Unlimited because then they have to be exclusive to Amazon. So right now, books 1 through 4 are in Kindle Unlimited. So if you have that and you like romance, check them out. They're great, I think. Let me know what you think. So today I want to talk a little bit about saving money on food. I have been hearing a lot of people talk about how much food costs right now, how expensive it is. And really, if we're honest, everything right now is super expensive. I went just for a regular checkup. Same thing I had done last year at my doctor's, and I ended up getting a bill. I never get a bill for just regular checkups because I like to get a full workup with blood work. And because I wanted my vitamin D tested, I had to pay $12 through my insurance. And I was like, what? They didn't cover that anymore? So it was just a little surprise. And it's not, like a huge deal or whatever, but at this time, everything is more expensive. So yes, I understand people are like, oh, what am I going to do about food? But one of the complaints, like someone asked this question on Twitter, they said, how are people saving on food, blah, blah, blah. And I tried to share what we were doing, and I got a lot of backlash that this is just like impossible to do. What did I share? I said, gardening will help you save and buying local meat and whatever produce you can't grow. I got a lot of backlash about that. Oh, no, it's always going to be more expensive. Oh, okay. So let's talk about that. One thing that I've noticed is that a lot of people who don't buy local don't try to find a local rancher or farmer where they can buy their beef and poultry. One thing that I've noticed is that a lot of people, they haven't even checked in their area to see what is available, but they're responding because they just think it's going to be more expensive. These are people who, if you say, hey, have you looked for a community garden? Have you tried gardening yourself? Things like that. They have excuses as to why they can't do it. And I think it's more of, they just have heard things and they're taking it as gospel. So let's talk a little bit about that because this year we have, I would say about 90% of our food, we are either growing or buying local. Every now and then we have to run to the grocery store for something, minor, but we are not spending a lot of money there. And it's great not to have to go as well. But I just want to share a few things that you can do if you're like, I just absolutely cannot afford to buy local. I'm going to tell you about ways where you can get stuff for free locally. Number 1, get to know the farmers and ranchers in your area. I know not everybody lives near farmers and ranchers, but if you do, get to know them. Why? Well, the only way you're going to know that there are deals on produce and meat and poultry is if you hear about them And these farmers are not going to be sending out ads or advertising online. So you're not going to know about it if you're not familiar with either people who buy local or the people who produce the food locally. When I talk to people and I say, hey, who in your neighborhood has Angus beef? Who in your neighborhood grows corn? Like people just don't know. They don't know what farmers are doing in their area. One way to meet farmers and ranchers is to go to the farmers market and get to know them, ask questions, find out what they're doing. Once you do that and you have community connections, then you actually get a chance to take advantage of deals. Now, what are some of the deals that you may be able to take advantage of? Well, here's one that is absolutely free. All farmers end up with stuff that they cannot sell to consumers. Why? Because it's ugly. It doesn't look right. It's not uniform. You may have heard of companies, I've talked about them before, Misfits Market and Imperfect Foods. These are companies, now Imperfect Foods is part of Misfits Market at this time, but here's what these companies do. They go around, they get produce that doesn't look great, that farmers can't sell. They're just going to destroy it because they can't eat it all. So it's there. If you have local farmers in your area, they are going to have this same issue. So instead of ordering the food from Misfits Market or Imperfect Foods, you can talk to these farmers once you know them and ask if you can come and collect their misshapen produce that they're not going to sell. In my area, yes, they're happy to have you come and do it because they don't necessarily want to destroy any of it. They spent time growing it, but they know it's not marketable and they can't eat it all. So that's one way where you can get 100% free food. Generally, what they want you to do is just get it off their property. That's one way. Here's another. Number 2, if you know people that grow sizable gardens, there's no way that they're going to be able to use all of the food that they produce. I know someone who, him and his wife, they like to grow stuff, but they can't eat it all. And they're not at a point where they're ready to go to the farmer's market and sell, although they think at some point they want to do that. So right now, they're just working on making sure they can grow a lot of produce so that they can go to the farmer's market in the future, maybe in a couple years. They're training up so that they can do that. In the meantime, they have a lot of food that they just can't consume. They freeze, but then there's still a lot of excess. So what do? They invite people over to their property to pick the food. And since they can't use it and it's good food, they just let the people that come and pick it take it for free, 100% free, because they don't want to waste the food, but they realize that it's going to go to waste if they don't give it away because they just can't eat it all and they're not at a point where they're actually selling at the farmer's market. So look around for people like that. And I mean, it doesn't have to be someone who's planning on selling at the farmer's market. To be honest, if someone comes to my property and wants to pick some of the pears off of our pear tree, yes, you can do it and you can definitely have some because there are so many. The other day I went to church and there's a box of apples sitting there because people just have so much produce around this time and they can't use it all, so they give it away. Be on the lookout for situations like that. You might have somebody that brings in a ton of zucchini at work or whatever. Always take that. You can find a recipe for whatever they're bringing in. So when you have those opportunities, if it's a friend who has a garden that needs, help with harvesting, or somebody brings it to work or something at church or whatever, always take that food. You can find something to do with it. Number 3, when it comes to meat, obviously meat is going to be more expensive than, your produce. If you are struggling to make ends meet and you just really can't afford to buy, grass-fed organic beef and things like that, one thing that you can do is if you know ranchers in your area, you can actually offer your skills as a barter and trade to get your meat. Now, we just buy it, but if we needed to, we would offer services to get meat. I know that sounds a little strange, but this is not that odd. A lot of people have done this throughout history. You have a skill, they have a product that you want. Offer to use your skill to help them, and then they give you some of the product. Simple as that. If you have enough money to buy locally, but you're still worried about the cost, here's something that you can do. Buy when prices are down. So ranchers, the ones that we buy from, generally what they do is they set a price and they leave that price, right? But when prices go down in stores, they offer discounts. So, for example, we bought a quarter cow last year, and we still have meat from it, some of it, and we beat the price increases that came this year. Now, this year we decided, let's try to keep our eyes open for a deal. Another rancher, it's a co-op of ranchers about an hour north of us, they had a deal where over the summer they're having this big sale. So we decided to take advantage of the sale and get a whole cow. So we got that price locked in, whereas now if you were to go, if you're looking for a whole cow at this point, you're probably not going to get a deal on it because this is the time when people that are pre-ordered, they're selling out. So that's important to keep in mind. But because we took advantage of a deal, we are going to pay less and we're going to have a whole cow, which I don't even know how long it's going to last. It's a very long time though, I think. So these are just little things that you can do. Another thing that I keep hearing is that people just can't garden if they live in apartments or condos or whatever. This is not true, my friends. I lived in an apartment at one time and I was very poor. I was a teacher, I was single, and I didn't have a lot of money. So what I was doing was growing one kale plant in a little corner with a grow lamp. And why was I growing kale? Well, kale was something that I used to eat every day. Every day I would have at least one kale salad, sometimes two, because it was an inexpensive, relatively healthy vegetable. So that's what I did. It was not hard. In fact, if you're growing inside, it's so much easier. You're not going to have the weeding that you have to deal with. You get to control, it's easy to do. So if you live in a small place, you still can grow things. You just, you don't have acreage, but you could grow a few plants. Even if you just grew something like one freaking lettuce plant, you're still saving because even lettuce is expensive now. So something to think about. I mean, I guess that in my mind, I'm like, there are ways to do things. Like there were just times that I just didn't have the space or the money or whatever, or the time. And I had to find ways to do things. And that was one of them. Like if I could save, even though kale wasn't super expensive then or whatever, but I still wasn't paying for it. I wasn't buying it from the grocery store and I didn't have to drive to the grocery store to get it. So that's another thing that I forgot to mention about the meat. So we get our meat delivered right to our front door. They come, they drop it off, done. So that means that we don't go driving around looking for deals on beef and things like that. And I do know people who they literally drive across town looking for deals. The problem with that right now is gas is expensive. So if you're driving around store to store, town to town, looking for deals, you need to take into account how much money you're spending to do that. And ask yourself, would it be easier if I just had my beef delivered? I might pay a little bit more upfront for it, but since the economy, I mean, who knows what's going to happen, but it seems like things are getting more and more expensive. I know that there's talk that inflation's down now and then or whatever, but really I'm thinking things are just going to get more expensive. So if you were to bite the bullet and maybe buy a quarter cow, whatever, or even if you just, stocked up on steaks and, like you didn't even buy a quarter cow, you bought some meat from a local rancher. So just something to think about when we see the prices of things. Consider how long it's going to last you. Consider where you're getting it from, the quality of it, because obviously you also want a decent quality meat. So just all things to consider. Also, the last thing that I think is super important that people should be doing is canning and freezing things. We technically haven't needed to grow any tomatoes for the past 2 years because we always have tomatoes in our freezer. That means that I just go in there and grab a bag of tomatoes. I never buy things like spaghetti sauce, ketchup, anything like that. Any type of red sauce, marinara, I just make it. So that means I'm safe. And I mean, those are things that are so easy to make. And they're not super expensive at the grocery store, but if you add up what you spend on them over time, they are. So just having those tomatoes in there, anything that requires a tomato sauce, I make. We do not buy it. And obviously tomato soup too, which I have a really good recipe for that. So just something to think about. And if you are really wanting to save money, and I know that freezing and canning, now that does take some space, very true. But if you don't have a lot of space, you still can do these things. You just can't do them on a large scale. And some is better than none. So say you freeze a couple bags of tomatoes. Okay, well, there you go. You have saved yourself from buying spaghetti sauce, pizza sauce, marinara sauce for a time. And that's better than nothing. So instead of thinking about, I don't have enough room, just work with what you have, adjust. You don't have to have several freezers to do things like this. The canning, you do need some, canning equipment to do it, but it is an option. It is something that you could do on a smaller scale. Sometimes I think that people get overwhelmed. They hear about things like canning, freezing, gardening, and they're always thinking large scale. You don't have to do that. Start small. I mean, this stuff is time consuming. It can be difficult. So it's better to start small anyway. Get used to it. And then as you have more room or more time, then you can grow into it. So those are things that we are doing. I want to know what you're doing. Let me know in the comments, and I will see you more regularly now because things are going pretty smooth with my author business. In the next video, I'll let you know what we're doing with rentals. So far, that has just been a great investment for us. It's going super well. We had vacancy in one rental this year for a month. So that was really good. I was worried, we had a tenant in there. The tenant wasn't great. And the property management company said, hey, can we just not renew this lease? And we were like, yep, go for it. You guys are there dealing with it. The tenant just needed a lot. So we only had the 1 month vacancy, and the other rental, it's been rented. Everything's going fine. So I will give you a full update on that in the next video. Hope everyone is doing well. Tell me what you're doing to save on food, and I'll see you in the next one.